Around the turn of the century, South Korea started its journey to become a powerhouse of modern cinema. It wasn't far into the century when directors like Park Chan-wook, Bong Joon-ho, and Lee Chang-dong made an impression on the international festival scene. And then, of course, in 2019, Parasite, a Bong hit, would notably go on to become the first foreign language film to win Best Picture.
And let's go full fucking woke!
Currently, K-dramas are also a big draw. You can see plenty of Korean things on Netflix. Of course, Squid Game is a notable show. And even beyond the most mainstream and deservingly mainstream directors, there are one-off successes like Train to Busan, Taxi Driver, and less mainstream but still quite accomplished directors like Na Hong-jin and Kim Ji-woon. But you'll notice that none of these directors' films, and none of those individual films, are animated. There are South Korean animated films, the industry does exist, but let's look at a movie which I saw cited as a success when looking into South Korean animation, Leafy, A Hen into the Wild. Per Wikipedia, it drew a record audience for a homegrown animated film in South Korea. But you can see by a quick comparison between it and even a relatively lesser-known Korean live-action film, A Bittersweet Life, on Letterboxd, that Leafy has clearly not reached a mainstream audience at all. That's not inherently a bad thing, but if the country's biggest success doesn't make a global dent, then it might explain why you don't hear much about Korean animation. Enter Lost in Starlight. This is directed by Jeon Ji-won and her second animated feature film. Again, her first didn't gain much international recognition or make much of a dent, but apparently worked well enough to not only get her a second film, but also to get her a film done with the help of Netflix. I won't do a whole section on Netflix being bad for cinema, but of course Netflix does kind of suck for a couple of reasons. However, at the very least, they do enable some movies like this to exist, even if you'll never be able to own them for yourself. And even if they never seem to promote many of their good films. Like, I never would have known this movie existed if I didn't go through Letterboxd when I got a month of Netflix just to go through 2025 releases to see what I was going to watch. Didn't see anything about it on the service, and here it is. Here's the recommendation. Lost in Starlight to this point is my vote for best movie of 2025. The year is still relatively young, but it is an extremely strong entry that would be at the top, near the top of basically any year list for me. And it's narrowly beating out another South Korean film actually that I also would never have randomly come across, I think, on Netflix. It's a love story. It's space travel. It's anchored by music. It is emotionally devastating for me, and it's absolutely exquisite. When an astronaut leaves Earth for Mars, the vast infinite space divides star-crossed lovers in this animated romance that crosses the cosmos. The Letterboxd summary is maybe a little bit dramatic or something, but I couldn't think of a better one. I think there are two main best qualities of the film, and fortunately they're very foundational. First is the music. Jay, the guy in the relationship, is a musician, and it is made clear in the film that music is a strong connection between the pair. Some of those in-movie songs play such an important role in their relationship, and even better, they are quite good. My favorite song in the movie overall, and the main connection song, is Bon Voyage. In addition to being utilized extremely well in its best moments, I love some of the musical choices in it. I love the piece of music by itself, even without the film context. The specific tone it has is really wonderful. It just dances constantly between hopeful and downbeat in a really special way. But even outside of Jay's music, there are some great songs on top of some more montage-y type sequences, and that's very much an important role in the film. We have a relatively short time to get comfortable with this relationship, to get fully on board with it. And the music is a key part of helping to develop that emotion and to kind of guide us along the way where the film hopes we will be. Second is the relationship. They just radiate joy when they're together. I find something so genuine and free in their interactions together. Can't help but rooting for them and being happy because of how they're depicted as characters. And they just seem like the kind of people that I would want to be happy. So I think it's just so easy to root for them, so easy to get on board with the relationship the movie presents. There's a third quality, which isn't foundational, but is still utilized beautifully. I'm not the biggest fan of all of the animation style. I think the faces feel a little bit off to me, but some of my favorite little moments in the movie are animation related, and they are these kind of non-literal imaginings of events and of emotions. I think it's so appropriate in a movie so full of emotion that it has to visualize some things non-literally to try and communicate that emotional reality between the two characters. So these non-literal moments are relatively infrequent most of the movie, but when they're utilized, I think it's magic. Then I also enjoy the particular vision of the future. Some of the devices cameras and all, the holograms and stuff, that feels like reasonable progressions of the kind of devices we have now. I like that this isn't a dystopian sort of, ad congested future. The environments are inviting, and even though it feels, in real life kind of impossible for technology to not grow more suffocating and oppressive over time, I like that we get a more optimistic rendering of the future here. So, like I said, favorite movie of the year so far, and unfortunately one that I don't see very much discourse about, but hopefully this video will inspire some people to go check out the film. Here's the spoiler section. Man, this movie put me in the emotional torture chamber for, what is it, like 20 straight minutes? I mean, you can tell it's building to something worrisome, like at the start of the third act. Like, really all of the third act is phenomenal. I think I cried harder at Tigers Are Not Afraid, but this, I think, is the most tears I've ever cried in a movie. The raw power of that musical connection, seeing Jay being able to succeed while Non-Young seems to slip, the cross-cutting between them with those, non-literal moments spliced in as well. Like, that cross-cutting isn't just effective juxtaposition. It sets like an expectation at the start that the two are on the same sort of level, right? Like in some kind of trouble and some danger in her case. And then their outcomes start to drift apart, right? Like we can see Jay beginning to kind of thrive and succeed and kind of achieve his dream, basically, while at the same time, we're seeing potentially Non-Young die right in front of us. Like I alluded to earlier, I totally buy into both people in this relationship. And so like the combination of seeing like the sweetness of Jay kind of like thriving and being able to succeed, while also the bitterness and the sadness of Non-Young potentially dying is like such a fantastic combination. And I mentioned earlier, like within Bon Voyage in that song, how it effortlessly dances between like sadness and hopefulness. That's like that is actually what the cross-cutting is doing. It's switching effortlessly between the hope and the despair. And I think that's just such a fantastic element that's added on, like adding to the severity of both ends of that spectrum. I completely believe that Non-Young could die. I kind of accepted it for a bit there. At least I wound up having to spend so much time in like emotionally devastated uncertainty just because it convinced me that at least it was very possible. The possibility of death is so real, I think, because of Jay's progression there. So like because of the way things progress, I think it was very possible in my mind that the outcome of the movie could basically be Jay having to learn from a short life experience, learning that life is sweet, whatever, something to that effect. Like that seems like a very reasonable takeaway for the movie. And that would kind of broadly mimic what happened with Non-Young experiencing losing her mother and being able to thrive regardless of all the pain, etc. So I totally buy it. Also, the song is called Bon Voyage for a goodbye. Of course, like it all fits. Of course, very glad she lives and we get like a beautiful ending and all that stuff. Some individual lines here and there were absolute hammers, like when the dad wondered if she had an umbrella. Like I think at that point in the movie I had just recovered from like a wave of crying and that just kicked it all off again. I was a mess when that happened. And yeah, I mean the fact that they're obviously have the distance between them, and the fact that the movie uses those visualizations, right? Like her imagining like having the figure of Jay like dissolve before her, using the images of the record, like waves and all these things like that, these reincorporations, and that sort of hand-drawn version of the cosmos and the shooting stars and stuff like that. All that lends just like a little bit of an extra dimension to that emotional turmoil to me. It really just comes together, a perfect storm of emotional depth and variety. Yeah, it's just so good. It's an emotional experience that I'm going to cherish for a long time. You don't get a lot of movies like that, so I hope people can find the time to watch it.